Okay, here we are in the truck. We just did our overview outside and tested all our lights. We've climbed into the truck now, and we're going to go ahead and perform our air supply test first. So what I do first is I make sure that both valves are in. In this particular truck they're in. I have the wheels chalked, and I have 120 psi on my air gauge, so I'm going to go ahead and shut the motor down. My first air test is I can lose up to 4 psi in 1 minute, so I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll apply the foot brake now. And we'll hold that for 1 minute, and as you can see, I've got over 50 pounds of applied pressure. I'm actually showing about 80 pounds of applied pressure. That's the bottom gauge on the right there in the 4 cluster, and we'll hold that for 1 minute. As I said, we can lose up to 4 psi. Okay, and it's a pretty long minute on this test, so guys got to have a little patience and not get too early with this and let it go. So okay, there's our 1 minute, and we lost 2 psi. Our second test is our low air warning, and we'll look for either a light or a buzzer, and that will activate at 60 psi or above. So what we got to do is we got to make sure we turn the key back on. We're going to have to make sure all the gauges recycle, and you see all the lights and everything like that. And once that's completed, then we go ahead and we can fan the brake pedal, again looking for a light or a buzzer to activate at 60 psi or above. We'll perform that. You see that application gauge on the right just bouncing back and forth. There's our light, and we have a buzzer, and that came on at approximately 75 psi on the truck. If you look in that 4-way cluster there on the right, that arrow on the left gauge on top, that's about 75 psi. Our third air test would be our air protection valve, and that it will be the red valve over here, and that will pop out somewhere between 20 and 45 psi after we've been fanning the brake, and that basically sets the trailer brakes on the trailer when we get down that low. So in order for me to do that, I got to again fan the brake pedal, and I'll do that now, and we'll wait for the valve on that we're looking for the red one to pop out somewhere between 20 and 45 psi, and it popped. And it looks like on the gauge that's approximately 30 psi on this unit. So our next air test, which is not a disqualifying one, just a point one, would be our air governor cutout. And what we do there is we'll have to start the truck up, and we'll build it up, the air pressure up to the maximum capacity, which should be between 100 and 125 psi. In order to perform that, we have to do a safety start, which we have to make sure the red valve or yellow valve is pulled out. We have to make sure the transmission is in neutral, and then we go ahead and the clutch is deployed, and then we start the vehicle. And while we're doing that, if we have the ability to increase the throttle, we'll do that. And on this one, it's just right there. So while we're waiting for the air governor to kick out, we're going to go ahead and do the incab. And what we do for that is I like to start with my mirrors and tell you that they're securely mounted. There's no damage to the glass, such as cracks or anything like that. They're adjusted. There's no missing nuts and bolts. I go to my windshield. I like to talk about that there's no cracks on that. There's no obstructions. There's no damage to the glass. The glass is clear and clean, and there's no illegal stickers or obstructions. I then like to come down here and talk about what's on my dash, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk about My dashboard indicator lights. I have an ABS light that went out as soon as I turned the key on and started the truck. I'm going to turn my left turn signal on. I'm going to turn my right turn signal on, and I'm going to go ahead and click my high beam, which you can barely see that light come on next to the red, just off to the left of the red one there. They go on and off. It's not very bright. So that's my indicator lights. Then I'm going to go ahead and tell you about my oil gauge, which is the top gauge on the left, and it's in operating range. I'm going to talk about the gauge on the right. The top of the 3 is my water gauge, and that's in operating range. I'm going to talk about the volt gauge, which is in the middle of that one, and it seems to be charging. And then I'm going to go over here and tell you about my air gauges. The top one on the left is my primary. The one on the right is my secondary. I'm going to go ahead and honk my horn. I'm going to go ahead and roll my steering wheel all the way to the right. I'm going to stick my head out and look at the steer tire as I rock the steering wheel back and forth 1 inch each way. And I'm going to tell you that I have less than 2 inches or 10 degrees of free play on a 20-inch steering wheel. At that point, I'm going to go down to the pedals on the floor. I'm going to depress my clutch pedal and tell you that it's free, it's not binding, and there's no noises unusual. I'm going to step on my foot brake. It's free, not binding, no unusual noises. I'm going to tell you about my throttle, and it's free and not binding. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to turn my heater defroster on, and I have to make sure that the button here is pointed to the defroster portion of the heater. I'm going to turn my windshield wipers on, and I'm going to tell you that they operate smoothly, they're securely mounted, and there's no damage to the blades such as cracked, worn, or frayed blades. I'm going to deploy my windshield washer, and I'm going to show you that my washers actually work, which is a good thing if you live here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm then going to go over and talk to you about my fuse panel, which is over there underneath the glove box. I got fuses and circuit breakers there, and that's where we keep them. I'm going to talk about my 3 reflective triangles under the seat, and then I'm going to talk about my fire extinguisher, which is securely mounted, fully charged. It's an ABC fire extinguisher. And if you just heard that, my air governor just popped out, and that was at 125 psi, which makes this well within the parameters of the unit. At this point, what I would do is tell the tester that I've completed my air test and my in-cab, and I would go right to my rolling brake test. And what I do with that is I push in the red valve, and I tug on the parking brake, which is a yellow one, and the tractor shouldn't move, and it doesn't. Then I would push in on my parking brake, and I would roll ahead, stepping on the brakes, and my foot brake works. Then I would roll ahead again, pulling my trailer valve, and that worked. And that would conclude my air test, my in-cab, and my 3-system rolling brake test. Thank you much for watching. Have a great day.